Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star's daily sports podcast. It's Thursday, July 9th, and I'm Blair Kerkhoff. Today, Royals beat writer Lynn Worthy catches us up on the team news, and there's been plenty of it this week, from new COVID-19 cases to scrimmages and the schedule release. Lynn's been out at Kauffman Stadium for all of it this week. Let's hear what he has to say. Lynn, since the last time we talked, a lot has happened. And we actually talked, in full disclosure, we talked on Monday. We were going to post a podcast about the Royals on Monday. We had a nice chat. We went over a few things. And just about as we were about to post the podcast, the news broke that a certain quarterback in town had signed a new contract. So the best laid plans, I suppose. We ended up scrapping that podcast. I was hoping we can come back the next day, but it just didn't work out. And so the news has piled up for the Royals since the last time we chatted, and we're gonna get to all of it. But let's start with some of the more recent events, and that is the COVID-19 positive tests for a couple of more Royals. That is Brad Keller and Ryan O'Hearn. And the news, I don't know what to think anymore when you hear news like that. Should you be surprised? Should you not be surprised? But it's news, and it affects how the team is going about its business. Why don't you take us through that news cycle and what it means for the Royals to not have Keller and O'Hearn right now?
Yeah, well, first of all, I was trying to figure out, was it something I said? You referenced the podcast we taped that never was. I was trying to figure out how I offended you, but we
have Patrick Mahomes to blame for a lot of just weak disruptions this week. So
yeah, he's a popular fellow, so I guess I understand.
Not to mention a rich one.
Yeah. That too. But on the COVID front, it seems like the hits keep coming, and I don't think you can really be surprised at this point, just because in one sense, I guess it's a surprise because they're doing so much in terms of their protocols and the way they've got things set up and all the different procedures. So they're doing a lot to try and prevent it, but at the same time, you look at the numbers, the numbers are going across the nation. That's why I say you probably shouldn't be surprised, just because it's the virus is still out there, it's still going strong, so it's not a shock when anybody contracts it. But yeah, so far we've got the Royals have announced 3 people have come down with it. Brad Keller and Ryan O'Hearn being the most recent, and Salvador Perez over the 4th of July weekend. That announcement came out. But yeah, Keller was, when you talk about all 3 of them, really, you're talking about guys who were expected to be primary contributors. Keller, right. Keller started opening day last year. He was in the conversation to be the opening day starter this year. He's been viewed as sort of the ace of this staff just in the first couple of years. Last year was his first full season in the rotation. So he was, he's a guy who you expect to anchor this rotation along with Danny Duffy. And so now it's up in the air whether or not he'll even be able to be back for opening day. It's not for certain that he won't, but it's just, it's not certain either way that he will or he won't. And O'Hearn was looking like, he had been swinging the hottest bat in spring training when they were actually playing games in Arizona in Cactus League, and was, in a battle at that first base spot, so he's potentially starting first baseman, along with Ryan McBroom battling for that spot. But he looked really good this spring, and they really talked him up this offseason about how they were confident he was going to bounce back after struggling last year. And then, of course, Salvi, coming off of Tommy John and missing an entire season. And, you talk about a guy who's a 5-time Gold Glove winner who, now he hasn't had the spring training 2.0 experience at all thus far, other than working out in isolation.
Right. And we also found out last weekend that Mike Mathney, the manager, had gone through his bout of COVID-19. It had happened I guess in May, perhaps, and didn't bring it with him to spring training 2.0. But he's gone through the COVID as well. What did he say about his experience?
Yeah, about a month ago, while the baseball was on this hiatus, trying to figure out how they're going to get things restarted. Yeah, he had. I think he said that there was a family member who they knew had been who had it or been exposed, or he knew that he had been exposed. So it wasn't a shock, but so he and his wife quarantined. It was he was still able to sort of take part in what he needed to as far as the Zoom calls and with the coaching staff and the players. But he said, I mean, this is a guy who's, former professional baseball player, Major League Baseball player, Gold Glove winner, pro athlete for a long time. He said, yeah, he felt it. He was not asymptomatic. It wasn't one of those things where he didn't even know he had it. No, he felt it. And he said, if a person at a different point in their life, he could see where they could really get knocked around by, just the symptoms he had.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so what does this mean? And we know that the quarantine time is, what is it? Is it 10 to 14 days? How long do Salvi and Keller and O'Hearn have to lay low?
Well, they have to be symptom free. And now in Salvi's case, he was asymptomatic the whole time. So the earliest, and then so you have to be asymptomatic for a certain period of time, but then you also have to pass consecutive tests, or should have negative. I should say negative. Come back negative on consecutive tests.
Right.
And so roughly, and it depends. Like the medical staff is the one who's really going to determine case by case, but. I mean, like in Salvi's case, they probably weren't going to, at least at the time, it didn't sound like they were going to even retest him for a week or so, even though he was asymptomatic. So it was going to be probably, at least 5 to 7 days before they would think about giving him a retest to see if he would tested negative, and then he had to get a second negative test. Now with Keller said he did have symptoms in the statement. He said that it was sort of like akin to a allergy type of attack or something like that. And so he has to clear symptoms first before they'll even think about, when they're going to start to give him a retest. And I think O'Hearn was another one who didn't really have symptoms. So it's going to vary depending on the conditions of each guy. But the first things first is symptoms got to be gone for a period of time. Then they got to think about retest them, and you got to pass 2 tests before they'll let you come back and start taking part in activities. So you're talking at least a week probably for each of them. And then, depending on when their symptoms are gone, maybe it's longer, maybe it's as much as, 10 days, 2 weeks, depending on how things go.
It makes you wonder too, they're in spring training, they're trying to get their timing, everything, their physical, everything back, where it was, where they left off in March. And now they get this disruption. These 3 players in particular get this additional disruption after they had restarted. And I don't know. I just think about how long it'll take once Salvi and these guys get back. Keller especially is a curious one. Just to not be able to pitch for a certain amount of time when he'll get his sharpness back. And this is just something that a lot of teams are going through, and they've got to figure it out on for the roster and how they're going to manage, how they're going to handle it. And I mean, when games restart, it could be it's going to be a factor in the 60-game season, the 2-month season, I suspect. Who's got the virus and who doesn't, and it's just we talk about this, and it's important for sure. It's affected everything. It's just so unusual. It makes you think about things that you just have never thought about before in any sport. But here, baseball's in front of us. Baseball's getting ready to start here in another couple of weeks, and they're dealing with this it's just a crazy time for the sport. Hey, you and I were talking on Monday, Lynn, about not everybody's coming back in baseball. There have been some holdouts. I guess holdout's not even the right word, but they're not going to play. Some people have decided not to play this year. Others were sitting on the fence about playing. There was some problem with team testing or getting test results, maybe because it was the 4th of July weekend that held things up. But Has anything changed in baseball over the last few days? Just in terms of, have we heard from anybody else who, who doesn't want to play this year because of the virus?
I think there's a lot of guys who are on the fence. It seems like there's a lot of guys who are even in camps, but are, not certain that they're going to, be there for the full 60 games this season, or they want to be there for the full 60 games this season, just because of the risks. I mean, Mike Trout's been one of those guys, and he's mentioned the fact that his wife's expecting a child, their first child, and he's been pretty clear about not being certain how he feels about playing this season. I believe Buster Posey from the Giants is another guy who's said that he's not sure. And Washington Nationals have had several guys already opt out, but Sean Doolittle, who's their primary closer, he's got a wife with a compromised immune system, and he's in camp, but has been another guy who said he's not sure that he's going to want to do this for the full season and take on that risk for his family. So, the testing thing is something that Major League Baseball says they're addressing and talking about having potentially a second site. The lab that they contracted to handle all the testing is in Utah, and they're talking about potentially having a second site to handle some of the overflow just because of the volume and obviously the holiday weekend didn't help with that as far as getting the test results to the lab. But as of right now, I mean, I don't think there was anybody in the last couple of days that definitely said for sure they're out, but we've already seen it, over the last week, whether that's Ryan Zimmerman, David Price, I see Ian Desmond. I feel like there's another couple of names that I'm missing here, but guys who've already said Nick Markakis, I think maybe even the
Yeah,
day that we
yeah.
spoke. These are all guys who've decided that this is just going to be a no go this season as far as playing. And on the flip side of that, I think it was Sunday that we talked to Whit Merrifield, who talked about having a wife who has a compromised immune system, but how he felt like it was an obligation to his Royals family, and he worded it that way as his family, just like his biological family, just like his wife is his family. He talked about the Royals being a family, and he felt an obligation to be there for them. So it's there's a lot of things going on in baseball right now as far as just off the field and the virus and the decisions that are being made.
Yeah, we'll hear from Whit Merrifield after the break, along with some other Royal sound. But it was because of that, primarily because of that clip. What Whit said on Sunday, that just gave me the sense that the Royals may be in as good a shape as a team can be in, emotionally, mentally, as it approaches this most unusual baseball season. As we said, they're dealing with the COVID, just like a lot of other teams, but they're not dealing with, do we really want to be here? It doesn't seem that way anyway. And you've been out to the scrimmages this week, and that of course is also a new development since the last time we spoke. Do what's just what's the mood, the sense, the vibe? What do you? There's been a couple of them this week so far. What does it all seem like? Is the message positive? Does this team feel like it can have some success this year?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, multiple guys. As a matter of fact, I think one of the latest stories I had was talking about the 60 game season and had, voices in there from Witt to Ian Kennedy to Hunter Dozier to even Salvi. And Salvi, who, we talked to as he's breaking the news to everybody that he's, going to be sidelined for a while. But they all talked about that 60 game season, being excited about it and being, how it's going to be a different feel, how it's going to feel like a playoff chase from the beginning, and how they feel like they've got a chance. I think Salvi's quote was something along the lines of, "It's 60 games, anyone can win." So he felt like they should be
Right.
a playoff team. I mean, so like I mean, in when you're at the ballpark, I mean, it still feels a little eerie to think about, because we're watching them scrimmage in an empty stadium, and when when it hits in your head that the games are going to be played in the same type of environment, that part's kind of eerie, but the players, it seems like, are focused on trying to, not focused on, oh, should we be playing? I don't think, at least not that we've seen or heard. I think it seems like there's a focus when they're in the field of trying to make something happen this season that, especially coming off of those back-to-back 100 loss seasons. I think they felt like in the 162 game season, this was going to be a big year for them to start turning things around. And I think with the 60 game season, they still feel like this is, a chance to maybe even overperform what you might have expected in 162.
Right. Okay. So in the couple of scrimmages we've seen, let's see, Duffy threw an inning, started and threw an inning on Wednesday this week, and then Singer came in, followed him up with an appearance. Both had a couple of punch outs. I saw reading your game story. What's just from the two scrimmages, who's looked good, who hasn't? Who's been encouraging, and any surprises from the first two scrimmages?
They've got a sort of a rotating scrimmage setup that they do there too. So it's not sort of a team versus team thing, but it's so it makes it interesting. And they also, I mean, like Duffy, we saw on the field for one inning, but I think he also threw an additional two or three, maybe even. They're using the right field bullpen as an extra batting cage. And so it's sort of like if a guy threw an inning in the game and then went and threw a sim game in the backfield. That's sort of what they're using that cage as. So we only saw him throw one, but he looked good. He was facing like Whit and Gordo and some of those guys who didn't play in the inter squad the night before. So now we've seen the majority of the guys who you expect to play. We've seen a decent amount of. We've seen a lot of Bobby Witt too. Bobby Witt Jr., who's in both inter squad scrimmages, had a pair of hits in the latest one. But I'd say guys who stood out as far as the guys who you think are in contention for the 30, like Eric Mejia, who Mike Matheny had talked up in back in Arizona for his versatility and ability to play, infield, outfield, all over the place. He had a great diving play last night defensively, and I think he had two or three hits last night. I think he had one in the first scrimmage as well. MJ Melendez, one of the young catchers who struggled last year offensively after looking really good the year before offensively, where he had, I think, 17 home runs or 19 home runs, I want to say, in 73 RBIs. He's looked really good swinging the bat. He's not so much a 30-man guy, but just a young guy along with Bobby Witt, some of those young guys. Sully Matias, who had injury issues in the recent years, but had a 30 home run season in the minors a couple years ago. Hit one off the wall the other night. So in the pitchers, it seems like aside from, I want to say, Braden Shipley, I think all the pitchers that we've seen on the big field has only been really for an inning at a time. And I know they're throwing more than that, so it's hard to get a real good sense for, how stretched out they are, or if they, how built up they are. But the stuff looks good from guys like Duffy, and Rosenthal was out there a couple days ago throwing. The radar gun's not on, but he was throwing heat. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Josh Stalmont was also. He had a little trouble with the grip on the breaking ball, but he's throwing heat. The two of those guys throw 100 miles an hour, and even without a radar gun, you can tell it's coming plenty quick. So.
Right.
Those are just some of the ones that sort of, as the two scrimmages with the moving parts and everything. Those are some of the things that stand out in my mind.
I know we're still a couple of weeks away, but I think we got this sense in the spring that the improved bullpen, the bullpen's improved enough to give fans some optimism, at least with that part of the game, because that was such a disappointment last year and really cost the Royals. But it looks like they've made the improvements that they need to make, and so just going back to the optimism that some of the players express. Part of the reason for that is it looks like the bullpen is going to be better. So, all right, Lynn, we'll spend some time breaking down the team next week as opening day approaches. Opening day will be July 24th, I believe, is the date for the Royals. Oh, that's another thing that has occurred since the last time we talked. The schedule came out, and the Royals open at Cleveland, at Detroit, little road trip to open the season. Come back home. One thing that struck me on the schedule, it's only 60 games, so it's 30 home games, but no weekday afternoon games. The only afternoon starts are on the weekend, and not even and some of those Saturday games are at night as well. Was there anything that stood out for you on the schedule?
Just the those ones that everybody looks for. When's their opener and where is it? And that's going to be in Cleveland on the 24th, as you said. The home opener, the 31st, I believe, against Chicago. And then, because Mike Mathney, obviously, I think people look for those. Not that they didn't look for the Cardinals already, but they'll play 6 games with the Cardinals this year. And the first, I believe, is August. Going off the top of my head, but I want to say 24th, 23rd, or 24th is the first time they'll play the Cardinals. Of course, there won't be, I believe the first one's on the road, but there won't be any fans in the stand. So if you're looking for a reaction on Matheny's return, it'd be pretty hard to find.
Have to look on social media, I guess.
Yeah.
So, okay. All right, Lynn, great catching up with you, and we will talk to you again soon.
Thanks.
Hey, it's Blair. We have a special subscription offer for SportsBeat KC listeners, unlimited digital access to the Kansas City Stars award-winning sports coverage. Sign up now for 1 year of Sports Pass for access to all the sports news, features, and columns presented on the kansascity.com site, and it's only $30. That's a 40% savings off our regular rate. Your subscription will automatically renew after the initial term at $50 unless you tell us to cancel. Your subscription helps support the sports coverage of kansascity.com and the Kansas City Star, and that support has never been more important. Please visit kansascity.com/SportsBeatKC offer to get this special offer. And as always, thanks for listening. We're back on SportsBeat KC. Let's hear from Whit Merrifield and manager Mike Mathney. This was from earlier in the week before the scrimmages started, but the sentiment stands. Merrifield speaks to why it's important for him to play this season, and Matheny responds to a question about the Royals being built for the short season.
As far as how we feel about it, I've seen what a lot of guys have said, and I respect how they feel, and I'm in a different situation than a lot of guys, and guys are in different situations than me. I'm saying this coming from my wife that has a compromised immune system. There was never a hesitation from her or me about playing this year. She's been with me since high school. She understands what it takes to get to this level. She understands this level is a short window of time. And she also understands that just like I have an obligation to her to be the best husband I can be, to my siblings to be the best brother I can be, and to my parents to be the best son I can be, I have an obligation to those guys in there, because those guys are my family as well, to show up and to perform. And if I'm not there, I'm putting those guys in jeopardy this year. If they're not there, they're putting us in jeopardy as far as a team goes. So those guys are my family, just like my family at home is my family. And for guys, at least in this clubhouse, to consider not showing up, I don't think was ever an option, just because we understand where we're at as a team. And we're not going to let the virus dictate what we've done and how we've gotten, how long it's taken us to get to this point. We're going to keep living our lives and combat it the best we can.
I liked our chances with 162, but I always refuse to deny the human spirit and the ability for guys to get better. Plus, you look at a collective group that it's time. I mean, it's time for that development to move in the direction of, yes, I'm a major leaguer, to now I'm a successful major leaguer on a major league winning team. It's an evolution. And then the influx of some excitement, the wisdom of veteran leadership. I mean, all those things combined. But truly, Marcus, I do believe that it's going to be handling these intangibles. I think it's going to be philosophy and style of play. Clean baseball with the ability to just put constant pressure on, which I believe are hallmarks for the Kansas City Royals. I believe those will shine early in a season like this. Players who did that extra work and are as close to being ready at the beginning of this thing are going to have an edge. And then you start talking about momentum. You start having some positive reinforcement. You start seeing how your team's improving and how they're competing. Momentum could be a big deal in a shortened season, which doesn't necessarily play as well in 162. So I think there are a number of things, but these are all controllables. And what we're really trying to get guys to buy into, Marcus, is the process. Buy into the process of let's do the right thing. Let's fall in love with the competition of individual pitch by pitch. keep it in bite-sized pieces to where we can maintain throughout this sprint. And all of those things I see, that's a skill. Those are skill sets that our guys have. Now, having that skill set and then implementing against some of the best competition in the game of baseball, that's a whole nother question, and that's yet to be seen. But that's why we're excited to watch our guys go start competing tomorrow in these inter-squad games, and hopefully it'll all translate once we get out on the field.
That'll do it for today. Thanks to our production staff of Derek Donovan, Savannah Smith, Randy Mason, Beth Welsh, Jeff Rosen, and Chris Fickett. A tip of the cap to Lynn Worthy for hanging out and talking Royals baseball. Links to stories about the Royals can be found in the show notes and always on the True Blue app. Hey, earlier in the episode you heard me talk about the Sports Pass offer. It still stands and still a good one, $30 for a year's worth of sports coverage, and that includes Sports Extra with the e-edition. There's more than 20 additional pages of national sports coverage today. Here's an even better offer. Buy the entire Kansas City Star product. Sports news, features, commentary, and analysis, the whole thing. You get all the stories written by my talented colleagues, plus extra news, sports, and business coverage. The details can be found at account.kansascity.com/subscribe. That's account.kansascity.com/subscribe. And whether it's the Sports Pass or the full subscription, you're getting and supporting the best sports and news coverage in Kansas City and helping us produce programs like SportsBeat KC. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back on Friday with another episode.